How's it going, guys? My name is Garish Bally, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics, another week. I do apologize, guys. We did have some technical difficulties, but we were here on time, but we just had some few problems there. But we're finally online, and we got the guest also on the panel there. So before we bring him, I want to make sure that everyone's listening here. Today, we're going to be talking about what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about acting. We're talking about script writing, how to be an actor, how to be a motivational speaker. It's all that stuff, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is what does it take to be a motivational speaker? What does it take to be an actor? And what does it take to be a damn awesome writer for movies? That is. So we have a guest of ours, and he's a Bollywood actor down in the other side of the world. I'm in the States, and he's in India, but we've been talking for him for the last 4 or 5 months on a different social media platform. An amazing person that you can chat with him all the time. Is just amazing personality. So let's bring Manil into the panel, and then we'll go and talk and chit chat with him. Manil, how are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Shukriya, Girishji. Thank you very much for this honor. I'm completely humbled and honored. And thank you very much once again. And this is Namaste from India to all the people who are listening to us and the people who are in the US and other parts of the world. And I've been feeling really great. I've been amazingly well. And all I can say is that platforms like yours actually give a lot of reach to a lot of clarity, which aspiring actors and aspiring writers might have in the mindset, especially as far as it's the concern to make some kind of a profession out of it, a serious profession out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Thank you.
these, yeah, thank you very
No, no,
much.
no. Please, please, please.
So that's what the case is. That there's a lot of ambiguity, there's a lot of indecisiveness, ambivalence, and a lot of schools of thought are running in terms of when you specifically talk about acting and writing. So mentors like us, we have the basic and the fundamental responsibility of making it clear what exactly should be done. When you especially talk in connection or for the benefit of youngsters who would want to actually make a career out of it, because here back in India, what happens is most of the people they would want to pursue such a career. I mean, I would even call that. I will even go up to an extent, and I would say that everybody at least once has dreamed to become an actor, at least once in his lifetime,
Mm,
or as a writer.
yeah.
But it does not materialize because I think there has to be a lot of clarity, transparency, and a lot of openness between what basically is given as an employment and what basically a person can pursue it
Yeah.
as some kind of achieving goal. So that's what these platforms and these conversations are basically very fruitious and very beneficial for people
Yeah.
like us. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Manil, for coming on the show and explaining to us that what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get to the details of the show, I say this question all the time to all my guests before we start the show. But what does back to basic mean to you?
Back to Basics has always been a platform where multiple conversations basically enhance the development, personal development, and the holistic development of a person. So, for example, when you even talk to me, also, when you actually had a conversation with me just a couple of minutes ago before this live session was happening, so I was quite happy when you actually, put forth that point of being, if not a motivational speaker, at least talking about motivation for human development. So I think Back to Basics has always been a complete platform for all of us, where you're not even concerned. There's no particular programming, there's no particular understanding. It's actually a very, very democratic and a liberal platform for all of us. And of course, for creators like us, it has always been a boon and an opportunity, because it gives actually some kind of, let's say, an exhibition or a platformification for us to express our thoughts also. So that
Mm.
ways, I see it very relevant in the times of today, and it being a podcast also, where podcast being in the pivot and in vogue also these days. So I
Yeah.
think it's a very relevant platform, and you're running it very earnestly and very successfully, Girish.
Thank you so much, and thank you for those kind words. You've been supporting me for the last 4 or 5 months of whatever I've been doing, and you've been giving me good feedback and bad ones. So then that's how I improve. But thank you again for that. Manil, let's talk a little about acting, if you don't mind. You've been acting for the longest time, but what triggered you for being an actor? I mean, there has to be something triggered you. That did you enjoy it, or did you go for the money, or did you go for what? What was the drive in the beginning?
Okay, so the drive was ironically not the drive, but it was basically a consequence of substitution and elimination. And very surprisingly, when I entered into this profession, I realized that I'm passionate about it. It was not the other way around, that I was passionate, and which is why I went into this kind of a profession. It was only when I started working, I realized, oh, this is something which I wanted to do. Um, Factually, if you ask me, it was because of certain things. I sat in a couple of examinations and I could qualify. I am basically, by my academics, I'm a lawyer, and I could do my law successfully. I did work in a corporate entity which was basically legal in nature, and our work was legal in nature. Um, However, the basic impetus and the thrust, I would now say, after having completed about 10 to 12 years in this particular profession, is the kind of college I come from. It's from Delhi University, and one of the prestigious colleges of Delhi University. And very happily, I can even admit that it has a lot of presence in our Hindi film industry. And even the most respectable सदी के जो महानायक हैं, the most respectable are senior Bachchan, Amitabh Bachchan sir, is a super duper senior. And many of my contemporaries, many of my classmates are doing wonderfully well in the Hindi film industry. Um, Unfortunately, I could not work either in the theatre society of our college, which is known as Players. And आप देखेंगे Players के there are a lot of alumni who are doing wonderfully well in direction, acting, script writing also in Hindi film industry. But I could not work in Players during my college time. I was just heavily into debating. But when I went into my law and I sat for multiple examinations, could not get through, I got a little opportunity of playing a character in a film, and that's where I realized that this is something I wanted to do. Maybe subconsciously, it was always in my mind to work in films and to be a part of Hindi film industry and to work for our Bollywood, so to speak. But it was only when I started or got my first break, I realized that I actually wanted to become an actor. However, again, very surprisingly, I started teaching acting before I could myself become an actor. So I was teaching before, and then when I started working in theater, it was all very topsy turvy, in the sense I started working in films before, then I did theater, and it was a very colorful journey. And then when I started, writing for stage, people said, "You are a decent writer. Your scripts have been accepted. Why don't you try teaching script writing as well?" I did. I started doing that as well. And
Yeah,
I was, with the grace of Almighty, by your love and blessings, I got accepted on both the fronts, in teaching acting and in teaching script writing. So it was basically the circumstances and situations which made me to realize that you're made for this, and rather than me telling my situations in my life, no, I wanted to do this. So that's about it. Was a colorful journey, and I have been teaching script writing and acting for about 11 years or so, and I've been working as an actor and as a script writer for stage as well as for media for almost the same time. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, Manil, for explaining that. And you've been doing this for a long time, so you know exactly what you're looking for when it comes to acting. But let me ask you this, and I've been wanted to ask somebody in the industry, from even all the way from Hollywood to Bollywood, okay? Because acting is just acting; it doesn't matter where it is. When you get a script, when you are trying to surprise, uh, you get a surprise dialogue. How do you react to the first time listening to a a dialogue in front of someone else? Does that make sense? Let's say if I'm giving you a dialogue or whatever I say, you're supposed to be surprised. How do you get surprised, but you already know what he or she's going to say during the rehearsals? Is that part of acting?
Okay, so acting is a wholesome journey, Girishji. And I
Yeah.
would tell you, I'm always surprised by an aspiring actor, especially in my classes also. And when we even, rehearse for our theater productions and theatrical ventures and all those kinds of, even for films also. Um, I always get surprised when an actor tries to give variation or color to his or her performance, which is beyond the expected, um, fulcrum or the kind of skeleton which the scriptwriter has set in the script.
Yeah.
So you are not expected to say something new. You're always expected to say something different. And I'm talking about not different words or the kind of wordings which you put in the script. You actually take a new venture, a new way to basically deliver what has been written there. But that does not mean that you negate or you become indifferent to what has been written in the script. So what surprises me in terms of purely in terms of the elemental performance is when somebody tells me something which I was always keen to know in terms of performance, but I never knew about it. So you basically make me surprised by making me realize that you should be surprised at this particular thing, if that makes any sense again.
Yes, it
So
does. It does. Because
yeah,
it's kind of ironic that you're acting for that particular scene, and you're supposed to be surprised, and that's the first time you listen to that line. So I think it's a little difficult for an actor, but I think that's the skill that we're going to be, getting learned. I mean, that's what the actors do, isn't it? So,
Giriji, pata hai, I'm so sorry to cut you short here, but I think the previous preparation for an actor in that scenario actually matters a lot.
hmm,
So that's when we say that there are not always wars which happen between two countries, but the military and the defense forces are always prepared. क्योंकि ये जरूरी नहीं कि रोज जंग होगी, लेकिन जिस दिन होगी उसके लिए आप तैयार रहे.
that's
So the
right.
training aspect of an aspiring actor to manage, maneuver, and handle such situations. So, for example, when I say I am surprised, oh my God, what has he done? Oh my God, the delivery of this particular person, the projection of his voice. Oh my God, the gesticulation of his body. My God, the kind of character he's built. This all is not a day's job. He
Right.
has been failed before. He has been questioned and challenged before. And maybe out of the, I would say, the total um, collection and collaboration of many circumstances is what we see him or what we see him as a great actor today.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Thank
one
you.
should always respect the past in terms of understanding that what an actor today is, who actually surprises you, makes you feel happy, who
Hmm.
actually you even cry while sitting over there in the cinema hall and you watch him, and you kind of, this all is a collection of a long-term effort. So I think
Yeah.
that basic surprising element is very important for me, Girish ji.
Yeah, yeah. Manel, thank you again. We're gonna move slowly to script writing and acting between both of them because it's kind of intertwined, kind of the same thing. So let me ask you this, right? When it comes to script writing and when it comes to acting, obviously the script writer has an image of an actor or whatever the actor is doing. Okay, a male or a female, an actress, whatever it is, right? But I guess actor has a different image in his or her mind how to express that scene, and that's going to be a little different, right? So are isn't more like you're challenging the script writer as this is how it's supposed to be. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, so see, it's basically a confluence of everybody's collaborative effort. When you see a great film, it's actually collaborative in terms of the efforts of the director. It's actually the collaboration by the script writer, as well as equally important and equally quintessential is the imagination of the actor. Now, my
Hmm.
first job as an actor is that a script writer, when let's say he's written a particular script, and he definitely would be having a very clarified visualization of certain characters. Now, my first job is as an actor to listen to the director because he's the sync between me and the script writer. Now, very famous directors, very great directors, are directors who are very humble and very altruistic, and in terms of they would want to basically make a great film, they always make some kind of a sync or synchronization between the script writer and
Gotcha.
the actor. Right. However, in terms of conventional analysis of how films are made, you always are understood, you always are expecting the clarity of the script by the means of the director. That's
Hmm.
how he's there. He's
Hmm.
there to make the film visually representable. So,
Hmm.
right. So, if I'm a script writer, I may or may not have the knowledge of how it is should be shown onto the screen. But
Hmm.
this is my director's job, which is why
Hmm.
director has to be on set all the times. Now,
Hmm.
when my director is basically making me explain things, I also need to have a responsibility of understanding, oh my God, if this writer was writing this particular excerpt in the script, what exactly would be going in his mind?
Hmm. Hmm.
So my first job is basically to understand the characterization. Then, of course, my director is there to basically provide that sync and to help me out also to glorify that imagination.
Hmm.
However, I would still say that the job of an actor is quite challenging. Why? Because by the virtue of being a human being, by the virtue of being a creative person, you do have a limitation of explaining or elaborating something in front of me.
Hmm.
After that, what I do in front of the camera on screen is something which is my job, which is
Hmm.
my, let's say, a culmination or a consequence or a
Hmm.
result
Hmm.
of my imagination. So you see that if you give an improv exercise or some kind of a scene, or maybe, for example, establish shot from a film to two students of acting,
Hmm.
or two, some kind of established actors also, their quality of performance differs. And I would not even, quantify who's better, who's bad,
No,
who's
of course
worse,
not.
who's better, who's the best, but they are different from each other.
That's
That's
right.
because my actor as an imagination differs from the other person. And that actually is, first of all, as an individual, you need to work upon that rather than the moment you realize that I'm an actor and I need to work upon my kalpanaशीलता पे काम करना है, मुझे अपनी
Yeah.
imagination. No, your imagination actually starts working when you actually realize that this world is yours and you belong to this world. You're a human being. Whenever it
Yeah.
happens, maybe at 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or whatever.
So let
So I
me
think
let
the
me ask
collaborative, yeah.
let me ask you this question, okay? So the actor, we understand that he or she is reading that dialogues. We understand that there's a dialogue delivery because there's a difference between saying hello and hello, right? Because that's the actor's job. So we get that part. Let me just ask you this question: that we know that the director is the captain of the ship, as they always say, right? But what is a scriptwriter and the screenwriter, and then the director's, where does a handoff go, and where does the actor listen to? Obviously they listen to the director, but then how does the director dissect the screenplay and the script writing? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Giriji, the ideal and the most ideal situation would be when a writer becomes the director or vice versa. When
Hmm.
the director actually has written a script and now he's trying to direct his own work, or otherwise a script writer is trying to do that. Now,
Hmm.
you would see that normally films, irrespective whether they belong to Hindi film industry or the European film industry, or for that matter, world cinema also, the films which have been directed by writers have always come out to be better than people where there were multiple people involved,
Hmm.
which is why I mentioned in my previous discourse that it's basically a collaborative effort.
Hmm.
And when I talk about collaboration, I need a sense of understanding because we two are two different individuals.
That's right.
Normally, you would see that normally people who are writers and they can actually, kind of find a consonance, some kind of collaboration with my school of thought. Me being a director, they would try me to direct their work
Hmm.
because they may not know the technical nuances of making a film. They do not know what filmmaking is about. It's
Hmm.
not their job. The job is basically to basically write the script or the story. Um, when you talk about what exactly is the bifurcation, when exactly an actor has to, I would again, put forth the idea of it being a very joint effort. I have
Hmm.
been on film set, I have been on media sets, I have been on theatrical productions where director was just listening to the writer and understanding the script and therefore giving all the directions and instructions to the actor of listening to the writer.
Hmm.
And I've also been on sets, I've also been on opportunities of working as an actor where writer was much dependent upon the director
Hmm.
because he had one storyline, one basic fundamental idea, or one basic understanding. Conceptually, it was very clear to him, and he's even written a script also. But he
Hmm.
was heavily dependent upon the director because he wanted it to be visually presentable much more than the way it has been written on
Hmm.
papers.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, for example, if even I'll just give you a practical, very pragmatic example. Let's say I would want to show a chase scene in my film, and I'm just a writer. I'm not a director. I do not know about the filmmaking thing, right? Now I have a clear vision in my head कि ये ऐसा जाना चाहिए, वो गाड़ी यहाँ से आएगी, मैं ये वाला जो है यहाँ से जो है वो ड्रोन का एक शॉट उठाऊंगा, या मैं ये लॉन्ग शॉट लगाऊंगा, या मैं इतना चेज दिखाऊंगा, या मैं इस तरीके से टाइम एंड स्पेस होगा. ये मुझे शायद टेक्निकल वर्ड्स आई मे नॉट नो अबाउट इट बिकॉज आई डू नॉट कम फ्रॉम द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ फिल्म मेकिंग, बट आई हैव अ क्लियर विजुअल इन माई हेड. Now
But
who's
then
going to
that,
perform that?
but with that
Who's going to
example,
realize that?
with that example, sorry to cut you off, but with that example, do you think that's a script writer uh, to understand that the drone should be on the top or below or the camera left and right, or is that the director's job?
Not necessarily, sir. I could even speak about the term drone or that particular equipment
Well, when we
logistically
say drone,
that you go
when
about.
we say drone, we're talking this angle or this angle. I mean, it doesn't matter if it
Yeah,
is a drone or not. That's a director's thing.
right,
But
right. The more you, not necessarily, that's what I said. However, the more you know as a writer, the better it becomes for you to make your story very clear on paper. But then again, most of the sane directors, most of the good production houses also, which are taking new scripts these days, OTT platforms and all, I think I have this feeling because I don't know, after talking to people, I'm sending my scripts to OTT platforms and talking to good directors who are encouraging my scripts. The lesser you write, the better it is. But that does not mean that you should not have an understanding.
hmm,
Because the more you know about it, the lesser you would write.
hmm,
So that is what the case is. The lesser I know, the more I would write. Because I'm myself not clear about what exactly I want to say. But
that's
the
right.
more I know about it. But it does not mean that this is a norm. No. There have been instances where writers did not have the basic fundamental understanding of filmmaking. Still, the films could go very well on box office, have been really successful in the history of Hindi film industry. Why? Because the story was very clear. So I think
Hmm,
as a script writer, your primary job, your first job is to know what you're basically writing, not to
hmm,
understand how it to be visually shown. If you have that clarity, you can discuss that with the director, but that is your secondary job. First, you should know what you're writing. Because a good director would always make your sense of script writing
hmm.
very well realized on screen.
So do you think from a
That's what I
script?
want.
So thank you, Manil, for explaining that. For now, for a person who's a script writer, can they be a director, like an assistant director, to understand the technicalities? I mean, that is that the shift over to be a director, or do you think they would rather be where they are because they like to tell stories?
Um, So then again, there are two things to it. The
Hmm,
most beautiful aspect of this industry is that anybody can do anything.
that's right.
And there have been instances where assistant directors have basically dealt with a lot of other things also, different departments on a film set. There have been instances where script writers have turned out to be beautiful directors also. There have been other instances also where directors have turned out to be most prolific writers as well.
Hmm,
And even
that's
actors also for that matter. I'm including acting also.
hmm,
The more you be on a film set is the more you learn about filmmaking and acting and writing and everything.
hmm,
However, when you say that, is it some kind of, let's say, a benchmark or some kind of a parameter or some kind of, bifurcation or some kind of division that a script writer should not? No, so that is then again an individual choice.
hmm,
But then, yes, there are many other things which are basically there between the script and the screenplay. For example, shot division. For example, the
hmm,
design of a shot, which only a
hmm,
director or a DOP can understand. So,
hmm,
if,
hmm.
for example, let's say I'm a script writer and would want to venture into filmmaking, I definitely need to understand certain things. Maybe I
Yeah.
can do that by assisting a good director. Maybe I can do that by just being an actor. Maybe I can do that just by being on set as a script writer. That's
Hmm,
your process. But
yeah.
then again, you need to understand certain things because it's a semi-technical job also, being a director as well as being a person who's in the camera department. तो
Yeah.
आपको वो समझना ही पड़ेगा क्योंकि उसके बगैर आपकी जिम्मेदारी बढ़ गई ना. आपने
Hmm,
स्क्रिप्ट एक दी है, and even if you have written um, the easiest, the most lucid script, you
hmm,
still have the responsibility of making it more beautiful and relevant on screen. For
hmm,
that, you need to understand a couple of technical things also. And for that, there's a process. वो आप
hmm.
किसी film school से भी सीख सकते हैं.
Of
But
course.
I think the most, this is something which I feel, and even many Bollywood celebrities have come on platforms like Clubhouse and here and there, and even on Zoom also. and they have guided us very well. And I also resonate with this line of thought, with this school of thought, which says that the ideal way of working in a film industry is to study, then work, then again study, then work forever. That is the ideal way. Why? Because your questions and your challenges change. Why? Because you've studied a fundamental understanding. But then, since you have already worked, now please go for your masters or your extended education or something like that in filmmaking, acting, or whatever you want to do. Then your questions in the class or with the teacher also changes,
That's right. That's right.
right? So in that case, this I think is the most validly accepted definition of what should be the process of becoming what you want to do in a film industry. I think this is
Hmm.
the most accepted and validly accepted definition I've heard till now, which I also, as an individual and as a person who's working into the Hindi film industry, accept. So that is
Yeah, yeah.
what I respond to your question as.
Yeah, yeah. Manil, thank you again for answering that question. Let me ask you a little different question here, and a little laid back question. There's no right and wrong answer. It's just a question. Do you prefer movies, or do you prefer TV shows? When I say TV shows, I mean OTT platforms. Which one do you prefer?
Films, sir, films. I
Is it
prefer films.
why films versus that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, एक तो I come from a small town. Okay. So, despite the fact I'm basically a subscriber of Netflix and kind of I watch Amazon Prime and Netflix and all those kind of, many of our friends also, by the grace of God, are working in OTT platforms. There are basically two reasons to it. One, I'll tell you, it basically probably is a little result of our upbringing, and two, what I've observed during my making up years.
Yeah,
One, I think we come from small towns, so our understanding demographically, in the sense, into the penetration of population and in terms of the geography, because I come from a generation where there was no OTT platform.
that's right.
We've been raised with conventional cinema. So my understanding that कि यार आपने एक गोविंदा की फिल्म में बहुत अच्छा काम कर लिया ना, तो
Hmm.
आप केरला और बिहार दोनों जगह तक फेमस हो जाओगे,
That's right.
सेलिब्रिटी बन जाओगे. ये चीज जो है, this is always there, sir. Okay, and this comes from the kind of background, and I'm proud of it because we've been raised with that kind of a thing. I mean, people with my generation also. Second up, sirs, I think that I why do I, in this particular scenario, if you ask me today that why do I want to work in films today, because the kind of excess of great directors in films has actually gotten very purified in these years. And of course, in OTT platforms also, there has been a great quality content which is made for OTT platforms only.
Hmm.
However, I still feel that the kind of directors who coming into film industry and are just trying to make films are much elevated, much more sensical, making much more sense in the films, and the reach is also higher to us. Despite the fact I may have a phone right now in my hand and I might even subscribe to Netflix. Statistically, it might be different, sir, but this is my personal feeling
Yeah, yeah.
because
No.
I still believe in the conventional single screen theaters.
Hmm.
Do I not go to PVRs and all? Of course I do. But I still believe in the establishment of conventional single screen theater, single screen cinema halls where you go to watch a film. And
Hmm.
very beautifully, certain great directors are coming who are making great films. Not that
Hmm.
directors are not making good content for OTT, I'm not saying that. But I'm trying to say that if you ask me, I still feel cinema has much more relevance. And I can connect with the process of cinema in a better manner. Because I work
Yeah,
for shows also and I work for cinema also.
yeah. So,
So after
Manil, I'm not
study
saying
sessions, I
that.
connect with
Yeah,
cinema.
I'm not saying that the theaters are definitely going away, because I'm definitely a freak when it comes to theaters. I love going to theaters. I'm not saying that. I think the thought process nowadays is a little different, because I think OTT is also giving different shows. We're not going to give it examples because there's so many, right? But I think the way people are understanding is that, let's say if it is an 8 episode show, that's an 8 hour show, and you're understanding a character in a dissecting way, versus a 2 hour movie, you'll understand very little about that character. So I
I
think that's
accept that.
where that thought process is for a lot
Right.
of different people.
You Right, true. I accept that, and that's a beautiful point. In fact, you have made that. Let's say if I'm talking about some kind of an episodic show, if I'm talking about a series on an OTT platform, me being an audience, I have much more variation. I have much more access to understand the ability of an actor in that show, as opposed to, let's say, watching a conventional cinema of 2 hours, 120 minutes. I completely accept that.
Yeah, yeah.
However, 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 I completely accept that. However, in terms of access or in terms of the penetration amongst the masses, right? If you still, if you just go um, by the kind of time and space in which we are living in, you still have the relevance of movie stars, right? Which is, I'm not saying that I'm promoting it or some kind of a thing that, you would say that this is justified or something. I don't want to go into that moralistic, principally, you know, glorified or bombastic debate. No, I don't want to go into all that. What I'm trying to say is that they're still present in front of us.
Of course they are.
That is something which I think that the generation of ours, especially the present Indian population, is still accepting these movie stars as celebrities. So that's
Yeah,
what the case is. But then
yeah,
again, you have also made a valid point कि हमारे पास ज़्यादा access हो जाता है. We get to basically quantify you, clarify you, and to basically, you understand the nuances of acting because we have better access of seeing you more on the screen or for that matter on, let's say in a series or something.
hmm.
Yeah, I accept that.
So let me ask you this question, and I think it might be a tough question. I'm not really sure. Stage acting, a stage actor versus a movie slash OTT. Which one do you think is better? Because you have done
Sir, I
both.
think um, no, I would not say who's better, who's not. Any actor, irrespective of the medium, नुक्कड़ भी चल रहा होगा.
Hmm.
अगर अगर एक अगर अगर स्ट्रीट भी चल रहा है, स्ट्रीट थिएटर भी चल रहा होगा. और इसके मुकाबले में आपके पास ओटीटी है. इफ यू हैव सिनेमा, लेट्स से इफ यू हैव अ स्टेज थिएटर, इफ यू आर बेसिकली अ थिएटर एक्टर, स्टेज एक्टर, I would not be able to justify your presence on the basis of a medium.
Hmm.
How well you prepare your character, how great connections, and how better you can resonate with the vibe of the audience is
Hmm.
something. I think it's your greatest job as an actor. How
Hmm.
well you can prepare the character, or you can be the character, not even be a performer of the character, by the need and demand of the script, is something which you see that it does not really matter what medium we choose. Which is why conventionally it has been understood that, all theater actors are great actors. No, that's not true also.
Hmm.
There are
Yeah.
many actors. Yeah, there are many actors who do not perform well on stage, but they do exceptionally well on camera. Probably they have grown over age. They basically, understood their craft, and they have understood the process by working more. But then
Yeah.
again, yes, sir, having said that, I would also say that being different mediums, for example, if you talk about stage theater, you talk about OTT and movies and all, there are certain things you need to understand in terms of technicality.
Yeah.
वो
Manil,
आपको काम करके वो आती है, किसी फिल्म स्कूल से आती है, but the medium itself would not be able to justify whether you're a good actor or a bad actor.
yeah, I totally agree with that, Manil. Thank you again. There's a person named by Saurabh who's online right now. He's asking a question. For someone with no formal education and contact in the industry, but keen to learn filmmaking, how to get into the film or TV set to assist and observe in order to learn. So, what are your thoughts? Because you have a school and you teach. So, what are your thoughts on his question there?
Um, Sir, the very fact, sort of, first of all, thank you very much for your question. But I don't think that there's any kind of newspaper like Employment News which gives you the position of the vacancies of assistant directors on a film set. The first and the foremost thing is you need to be a part of the process, and it takes a while.
Hmm.
So if you want to assist any good director, you need to know people who can tell you. Nobody can promote you if you do not have a talent over there. At the end of it, you would just be, you would collapse in terms of
That's
a craft if you do not know your work.
that's right.
But to reach up to that level, you need to know certain people who can tell you कि भाई ये जगह है, यहाँ पे उनसे मिल लो, शायद तुम्हारा काम बन जाए.
Hmm.
क्योंकि इसके लिए कोई ओपन ऑडिशंस नहीं है. When you specifically talk about director, being assistant, being an assistant to direction, right? When you talk about being an assistant director, you
Hmm.
need to be in the fray, you need to be in the process. अब वो आप कैसे करते हैं वो आपके ऊपर है.
Hmm.
हाँ, एक अच्छा फिल्म स्कूल, एक अच्छा ड्रामा स्कूल आपको लोगों के ऐसे लोगों के बीच में ला के खड़ा कर देता है, उस माहौल में ला देता है जहां आपको ज्यादा कोशिश काविश और कवायद करनी नहीं पड़ती.
Hmm.
आपको भागना नहीं पड़ता कि मैं किससे मिलूं किससे ना मिलूं.
Hmm.
लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि अगर आपके पास कोई फॉर्मल एजुकेशन नहीं है या इफ यू डू नॉट कम फ्रॉम अ सर्टेन बैकग्राउंड यू वुड नॉट बी एबल टू क्रैक द कोड. नो, इट इज नॉट
Hmm.
लाइक दैट.
Hmm.
The only outcome could be the only outcome which I can see right now is which has been normally understood. You might take a little more while,
Hmm.
but if you have the required gut, if you have the understandability of your work, you certainly would be able to make it one day, be it
Yeah.
assistant direction or yeah, any kind of department on a film set.
Of course.
That's what
Of
I think.
course. Saurabh, I wanted to give you another answer too, if that's okay with you. My parents and Manila. Here's a education for you also. My grandfather was a director back in Bollywood, in the black and white movies. In Meera Kumaris
Sure.
and Kumar. All the old crowd, and then my dad also was a photographer, also for videographer. So it comes in my blood. So I said, you know what, with my connections and with my stuff, let's go and join. But honestly, I found out that it's a brutal industry. It's a tough industry. It's a very competitive industry. So if you do have some type of small talent, use that talent and use it wisely and use it like a weapon that you have never used it before. And look at me now, after how many years later, I'm actually making this happen for myself, and this is my industry also. So never lose hope whenever you do this. I mean, that's how I look at it. So, Manil, thank you again for answering that question. You know,
Thank you, sir.
I've talked to you for the last 4 or 5 months now, and the way you speak and the way you give answers is almost like a motivational speaker. So, what are your thoughts on that? When people they say that you are a motivational speaker, I mean, I think you are. So, what are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I'm very thankful if you understand me as a motivational speaker because it's actually the greatest honor. You really need some kind of, as in the temperament and the kind of understanding and great maturity. So I don't deserve that compliment, but since you've given it to me, I'm really thankful to you, Girishji. Um, if I talk about, you know, as a person who's been talking about certain goals, issues, and certain topics and certain discussions and all these things we have been part of, which otherwise may resonate or sound as me being a motivational speaker, it's the basic fact that I have never changed after my 10th grade. Now I think so because you've asked
Hmm.
this question.
Okay.
Um, and the basic fact, the most important fact is that I have always lived almost one uniformed, very simplistic life. I think is the only way I can talk about certain issues here and there.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it does not really mean that I have lived everybody's life, and which is why I'm so experienced and I've been a monk or something like that. No, it has never been the case.
No, of
I'm a
course not.
very regular guy. I'm a very regular guy. I'm a conventional person who's come from a small town and is trying to making his dream realize in a big city. That's all. There's
Of
no
course.
other, facade to my or some kind of I would say a face to my reality. This is the
No.
only thing. But if I could speak some kind of a thing which might even motivate certain people, I think it's the perplexity and confusion which is there in generations of our life right now. So they're seeking answers. They're seeking answers.
Hmm.
And I remember most of the things which I read. That's also one factual answer I would want to give you. So
Hmm.
if I've actually understood, if I've seen something, if I've read something somewhere, I would understand it, provided it gives me some kind of a valid resonance in my head.
Hmm.
If somebody is telling me something which I might end up in understanding myself 2 years down the line, I may not be able to remember it, sir. And this is a factual thing. This is
Hmm.
actually the reality of my mindset.
Hmm.
But if you're
Hmm.
telling me something, oh Manil, do you even know that we have, let's say, the construction of our houses in the US is almost same? I would always
Hmm.
keep that in mind. Oh my God, this is a new thing for me.
Hmm.
So the novelty, The me being a novice person, thinking always like a person who's still in his 10th grade, I think is something which has given me some kind of width, some kind of length and breadth, and some kind of dimensional access to different parts of life, because I find myself in everybody. I made
mm,
up of you also. I made up of Saurav also, who's just raised the question. And I am also seeking knowledge from other people.
mm.
So if I'm here, my first question in my head subconsciously comes in, oh my god, Girish ji comes from a different background. Let me know what Girish ji can actually enlighten me with.
Hmm.
So probably it's because of talking to a lot of people, being in multiple platforms. Like I mentioned before in the initial parts of our discussion, I mentioned that I've been a debater. So your neutrality becomes a little more, I would say, strong when you surprisingly remain in multiple lives,
Hmm.
because deep down you always remain simple and you accept everything which comes to your life.
Yeah.
So my
Manil,
my my justification or my filtration, what is right for me, what is wrong for me, and this is relevant for me, this is irrelevant for me, has never come into my head ever.
hmm, hmm.
Everybody is a school of thought for me. Every book is some kind of a guidance which is giving to me. It's actually giving me some kind of a thrust to my life. It's actually making me to more forward. That's what it.
Hmm.
So probably
Yeah.
this is the reason we can talk about almost everything. And very fortunately, since you complimented me also, I could guide certain people. That's about it. So I think this is the only reason.
No, no, absolutely, Manil. You deserve it. Whatever. And I've talked to you for many many months, and I guess Saurabh on the side, he's also said he's seen you in many different rooms and clubhouse, and I guess he's heard you for many many times, and I think he agrees also. So if everyone, whoever is listening right now, Manil is a definitely a member for Back to Basics Club on Clubhouse, and he comes once in a while to my rooms and my club, and hopefully you guys can come and join that club too, because he's there, I'm there, and we try to do as much as we can to give you good back to basic, feedback as you like. Manil, before you leave today. Uh, do you have any last words to all the listeners and viewers on today's session? And how was your journey on Back to Basics too before you leave today?
So I would want to talk about the journey with Back to Basics, like you just was mentioning also. You were mentioning about it, the rooms, and we've been knowing each other primarily from Clubhouse also. We've started talking on cell phones also. I think the basic intent of be Back to Basics on a public platform has been very, very welfareistic. It has always been for the benefit or for the greater good of the human mankind. That is what I think. We've been talking about relevant stuff. We've been talking about certain human values, and we have never cascaded or classified anything on the basis of what we think. We have always made it more important for us that what others might be suffering from, what exactly is what is happening in the rest of the country, rest other part of the world, rather than in my life.
Hmm.
So I think that is the basic intent, the pure and the most altruistic intent, and the purified intent of Back to Basics probably is the most important reason for making Back to Basics what it is today. That's what I think.
Hmm.
The discussions have been very matured. The speakers have been they have been very generous in sharing information, and they have always been um, very enlightened in terms of not remaining or limiting themselves to a particular discussion or topic. So,
Hmm.
like I said in the initial parts of my discussion, the first parts of my discussion, that Back to Basics is perhaps is basically making a kind of a unified world or a holistic world for everyone. So it's made for everybody practically. That's
Hmm.
what I feel. Back to
Yeah.
Basics. My last words, sir. I believe in quotes a lot. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, the prolific painter, Spanish painter, and he was not even a painter, he was like many other things also, but we know him as painter more. Picasso, Pablo Picasso.
Hmm.
He mentioned one of the greatest essences of a world. He says, everything you can imagine is real.
Hmm.
So whatever you basically has imagined has been realized and has been made real somewhere else, maybe in a parallel universe. So if that can happen there, why can't it happen in your life?
Hmm.
It also has a different connotation. It also says that probably the greatest inventions and the greatest discoveries of this world have been made possible because they were thought first. So your will to imagine is as important as your will to make it happen.
Hmm.
So I would want to finish with that particular quote of Picasso when he says, everything you can imagine is real. That's
Yeah.
what I would want in this process.
Yeah, thank you, Manil. Thank you so much for being here and explaining to us the difference between acting, screenwriting, screenplay, and being a director, and also being a motivational speaker, which you didn't even know that that was a thing for you, but you honestly you are. So thank you again for being on the show and supporting me. And you've been talking with me almost every other day on a different platform, and it's great to get to know you, and now I know you offline too. So it's great to know you. So thank you again for Manil for that. And
Thank you
next
so
time when I
much,
do
and
come,
thank you for your kind words. I wish all the very best. I wish all the greatest wishes to the core of my heart to Back to Basics. And I would just want God Almighty, Mother Nature, to let this entire beautiful journey of Back to Basics to keep continuing the way and in the manner it's basically is continuing today. So all the very best, and kudos to the family of Back to Basics and to you, sir. Thank you very much
eh,
for the opportunity.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Manil, for all the kind words. Thank you again. So,
Bye.
guys, we spoke with Manil today, and we talked about the basics of acting, and we talked about the basics of acting. We talked about the basics of screenwriting and all that crazy stuff. But there's one thing that we did mention is passion is one thing that we always need to follow. Now, as usual, as always, there's a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and here's the quote of the day, and hopefully my guest will like that quote. The quote is, acting is magical. Change your look and your attitude, and you can be anybody. Because acting is being anybody, isn't it? Now, as usual, as always, what do we always say at the end of the episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care. God bless. And keep on subscribing to all the platforms that we have on Back to Basics. And there are three things in every episode that it makes it successful for me, that is, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. Guys, take care. God bless. And I will see you next time on Back to Basics. Guys, there will be a special going on Back to Basics, and we'll be releasing on Mother's Day weekend, which is on Sunday, May 8th. So please stay tuned. And that is a bonus episode from Back to Basics. And guess what? There will be four ladies in that Back to Basics from season one. So stay tuned and be a follow out on YouTube, obviously, and definitely on the Instagram, where I post all my stuff, including my LinkedIn profile. So please follow me there. And if you have not subscribed to my newsletter, please go to my website at backtobasicsmode.com and just subscribe to the newsletters. They will be a weekly and a monthly. And you never know what type of articles I will be coming up with on the weekly ones. And on monthlies, it's a little different flavor. So you figure that out. But guys, take care. God bless. And keep on subscribing to all Back to Basic stuff. And love you guys. Take care. Bye. God bless.